So I know this is a little bit of a different video than I'm used to. It's not a review, nothing like that. Since I've started my book channel, I've been writing books, and I've been thinking a lot about how books are written, how different people like different books. And it got me thinking of something that really, when I started my film channel, I had this idea as a 19-year-old that I could just use psychology to figure out exactly how to make the perfect movie, or how to make a movie that everyone will love. Now I'm realizing more and more their opinions are subjective, and I want to talk about that. So let's start with that simple phrase. Opinions are subjective. That's the truth. People have different opinions on things. On my film channel, I've put out some videos, and some of my most popular videos. I think my second most popular video on the day recording this is about how Darth Vader is a terrible villain. One of my worst videos. You know, I'm probably going to get comments on this video itself saying how terrible I am of a person who believes in that. I'll get into that later because I feel like that is important to address that a little bit here. Some of my most popular videos are, you know, my negative opinion on Ever After. Other videos like that. I've put out some negative ones. I'm personally not as much of a negative person, but I do have opinions that I want to put out there of, hey, this is my opinion. I want to share it. But the problem is, back when I made those videos, I made it as, these are my educational videos. I'm going to talk about them from an educational standpoint, and this is why Darth Vader is a terrible villain from a writing standpoint. And while all the points I make, I still stand by this. I still think they're true. But in the same way, I realize that there are people who still think he's intimidating, who think he's a great villain, okay? And it really makes me realize that in these videos, I need to be more, even in my educational videos, be like, hey, I know these are my opinions. I say they're not, but they all come from my opinion. Opinions are shaped by you and by your life. Meaning, it comes from your experiences. Your experiences, your history, your personality, everything shapes what you have opinions on. When I say I don't like something, I try to say from just an education, I try to say from the writing standpoint of why I don't like, but in the same way, it is true. There's also the layer of just being my reaction to something. I watch Star Wars, and I see this clunky robot monster, and I'm like, who would find this intimidating? I do not find that guy intimidating at all. But there are people watching like, that guy reminds me of Hitler, that guy is terrible, that guy is terrifying. Different opinions. And, you know, I almost feel like I need to apologize somewhat to those people who I try to say that somehow, just because you have a different opinion than me, that means your opinion is wrong. No, my opinion is right for me. Your opinion. No, there is all subjective truths. Subjective truth is there are some characters who are badly set up. We'll talk about that later, about times when people's opinions are just flat out wrong. But in the same way, in this case, I would say with the Darth Vader thing, it's a little bit more my opinion of, hey, I didn't find him that intimidating because of these factors. People are like, yeah, but I found him intimidating because of these factors. Especially on the case with books, I would say. It's a big thing, right? With films, a lot of times, bad films are considered bad films. Good films are considered good, right? For the most part, that's the case. There are people who like the hate watching films, or, you know, just the it's so bad it's good films. But with books, for the most part, you have people who have just completely different opinions. I have a sister who's into the weirdest type of books. I'm not going to give them a name, but I think you understand where I'm coming from with those things, with those books. But I would read one of those books and I would be like, this is just awful. This is badly written. This is terrible. I would never want to read one of these books. I mean, I would never want to read Twilight because it's just badly written. But guess what? Twilight is one of the most popular fantasy books, along with 50 Shades of Grey. Terrible book. Terribly written. People love that book. So even more than movies, books are in a category of themselves when it comes to making badly written books. Again, as I mentioned in the intro, I'm writing a book right now. I'm writing multiple books right now. But when I first was thinking about the idea of writing books back in high school, maybe when I was a kid, I always thought of it as, I'm going to write a book and everyone's going to love it. Now write a book that I would like and people I think would like this book would like. Right? There are billions of people out there in the world. Most popular books sell millions, right? Guess what? If you wrote a book that everyone would love, that would sell billions, and that would be insane. But no one's going to write a book like that. Besides maybe the Bible. For the most part, the Bible is the only book that really has everyone, all Christians, everyone just buying that book. Right? Bible is one of the most common books people have in the shows. A dictionary is another one. But I think the Bible is a bad example because I think some people might actually say the Bible is their favorite book, but no one's really going to say a dictionary is their favorite book. In the same way, if you make a book for everyone, it's not going to be it's going to be for no one really. It's just going to be helpful for everyone in a way. I mean, like, in the same way, when I'm writing my book, I'm like, I'm going to write my book for people who like fantasy books with coming of age stories and, these high fantasy books. I'm going to write that. Like, that's what I want to write. I'm going to write it. People who like those books are going to like my book, right? I'm going to write a mystery novel. I like psychological thrillers. I'm writing a psychological thriller. Not everyone's into psychological thrillers, but I'm into psychological thrillers. I want to write those. I'm going to write those. Those couple thousand people, those maybe up to 1 million people who want to read my psychological thriller can. But I don't have to worry about how can I make the psychological thriller fit with people who like romance. Because it doesn't have to. It can have romance in it. But the main thing is the psychological thriller of it. That's what I'm writing. That's what I can do. If I like my high fantasy, I can write high fantasy. I don't have to write it for science fiction people. If I want to write a book about, I'm going to plan on writing a book one day about the Passion of the Christ and just dissecting that. That is not going to get a bunch of Muslims reading that book. That's for Christians, especially for Catholics. I'm going to write a book probably one day about the divine liturgy or the Mass, and we'll talk about that, dissecting that. Where's that going to land with? Mainly people who are Catholics, right? Because that's what I am. I want to write a book about that. Marriage, from a Christian's perspective, I want to write a book about, that is for Christians who want to hear about marriage from my perspective. It's not going to go to some secular people might read it and find it fascinating, find ways to actually bring it into their lives. But people who are not Christian don't need that. So you don't need to don't write books for everyone, write books for people who actually would read them. All that being said, you also have the fact that, hey, guess what? Opinions can change for people, right? And so just because someone has an opinion doesn't mean it can't change. That doesn't mean if someone's like, oh, I love Star Wars. And I'm like, okay, let me point out these problems with it. People can turn to, I still like Star Wars, but I agree with you on these problems. Or, hey, Ever After, it's the best Cinderella story. I say, well, it's not a Cinderella story. That's just true. Like, it's not a Cinderella story. Like, you can love that movie, but it's not a Cinderella story. And while a lot of people will be like, no, you're wrong. There are people who might be like, hey, okay, fair enough. I still like it, but fair enough, it's not a Cinderella story. See, like, there are times that people can, like, my opinions have changed a little bit. So that doesn't mean, video is not saying suddenly you can't address people who have different opinions than you and actually shape them too. Your opinions can change. My opinions over time are probably going to change in Star Wars. Unless you're thinking about putting out some more videos talking about things I love about Game of Thrones, even that, for the most part, all the videos I put out about Game of Thrones are from a negative perspective, just outside of my video on how to set up multiple characters. But I want to put out some videos talking about positives of it because they're all positives. And the last couple of months, especially, my opinion of Game of Thrones have changed a lot. Not completely. I still don't like Game of Thrones. I'm finding more positives of Game of Thrones as in my fantasy book. And I want to talk about this sometime, about what's good about Game of Thrones. What moments changed my opinion? What moments made me realize that I don't like Game of Thrones? Or what moments really made me kind of stay invested in Game of Thrones longer than I probably should have? That's an example of your opinions can change with time too. So with that being said, there are examples of when stuff are just plain out bad. In one of my videos when I'm breaking down why Captain Marvel doesn't work and set up their character, that's not even just my opinion. That is just flat out just, okay, you see this character and they say one thing. They say, hey, you are super full of yourself. You're super cocky. And then on screen, you see something completely different. This character is just deadpan the whole time. That is a case where it's like, wait, that's not my opinion. That's just straight facts. This character is not well set up. Captain Marvel, in the beginning, Captain Marvel, I see Captain Marvel in general, it's like a bad movie. That comes from my opinion, right? That thing is not subjective. That's the case. That's what they showed on screen. You can like something while also being able to admit that it's just flawed. People who like Twilight, people who like 50 Shades of Grey, stuff like that. I personally don't think 50 Shades of Grey is something that's okay that you like. That's on me. That's my opinion as a Christian. But, the same way, but it's still okay to say, hey, but that's not a well-written story. I just finished reviewing Harry Potter books. Guess what? There are problems with the Harry Potter books. I love the Harry Potter books. But in the same way, there are definitely problems with them and I talk about them. And you might have some fans who don't like that. But that's just reality. That, hey, guess what? That's weird. that doesn't work. That doesn't work. I mean, there are plot holes, and you can stop it. Love it. As I've talked about before, and I've tried to use this as an excuse on my film channel, but like the idea that of like summer blockbuster movies, like movies that if you overthink of them, they fall apart. But outside of that, they're good. The truth is, that's my way of excusing the fact of movies that I like, they're just bad. And now I want to just admit it. But guess what? That's just called my opinion. That's not saying that I could make a video talking about how The Mummy doesn't work. But in the same way, I like those movies, so I won't do that. I remember seeing a channel I love that put out a review for a movie who put out a video breaking down how terrible a movie that I loved was. And I watched the whole thing, and I was just like, everything you're saying right now makes zero sense. And I think I even made a comment. I'm not the biggest person on negative comments. I don't actually comment on people's videos too much, to be honest. I made a comment like, wait, everything you just say makes no sense. I think about that video now and realize he went into that video with the idea of, I'm going to make a negative review of this movie. And so he found ways to make it negative, right? If I go into a review of Star Wars and I'm saying, I'm going to find a way to make it positive, I'm going to find every little thing. As you see in my video breaking down why Force Awakens doesn't work on its world building versus A New Hope. That's actually something I want to put out a video sometime on. How Star Wars, one thing I think is the redeeming factor of Star Wars is its world building. It's actually good at world building. Not as good as Lord of the Rings and stuff like that, but still good world building. But you see what I'm saying? It's like, okay, if I put out a review for Star Wars, I could focus on, okay, Darth Vader doesn't work, or I could focus on, hey, the world building is good. Hey, there are these characters that are good. Hey, I can focus on the positives, or I can focus on the negatives. I don't like Star Wars, so I want to focus on the negatives. I like Lord of the Rings, so I want to focus on the positives. Yes, I could find negatives about the Lord of the Rings, but I choose not to because I like, and that's the truth. There are negative things about every movie, but your opinions can shape whether you want to ignore those or if you want to pay attention to those. One last thing I want to mention is I'm probably making negative comments on this video, especially because how much I've talked about Star Wars. Hopefully I might cut out some of that. Something about the internet. I don't want to complain about this too much, but I just have to mention it. When people disagree with you in real life, they say, I disagree with you. I mean, my best friend in high school, he actually commented on that video about Star Wars. He's a fan of Star Wars. He likes it. He texted me first beforehand, and he's like, hey, watch the video. You're getting a lot of negative comments on this. Just wanted to let you know, I disagree with you too, but I don't think they should treat you that way. And he left a comment saying, hey, I disagree with this guy, but I still want to make sure you guys realize this is a human you're talking to. This is a person. Please treat this person with respect. And I'm like, hey, thanks, man. I'm not going to say you guys can't comment when you want to comment. But in the same way, I feel like a lot of people on the internet need to remember that, guess what? I am a human. Those other YouTubers you watch are humans. You can have your negative comments. Maybe if you go into a comment section and find that you're only finding negative comments, maybe try to way to make your comment, even if it's a negative comment, come across more like, hey, I disagree with you on this, but well done making this video. Or like, I disagree with you on this, but proud that you actually took the time to put out this risky video. I mean, those comments are going to hit people more. And yes, I'm not going to tell you you can't comment what you want to comment, but this is less for my own channel and more for just other channels out there too. Please keep in mind that the people you're watching are also humans who have their opinions, and their opinions shape something, but they are not evil. They're not bad people just because they don't like Star Wars, just because they don't like the Lord of the Rings. Just like, even how much there are times I'm watching a video and someone is criticizing the Lord of the Rings, I want to just tear them apart. I learned not to. Why? Because I realize those are humans. No, why I sometimes put out videos that I know are more negative towards things is because I have these opinions, and I've never heard someone talk about how Darth Vader is a badly written villain. Everyone talks about him as a great villain, right? I have this opinion. I want to bring it out there because I love it when I get comments. In my video where I'm talking about Percy Jackson versus Harry Potter, all those comments on those were positive. And there was one comment that stood out to me the most. And that comment was saying, this is not the exact words, but the person was basically saying, it's good to know that there are other people out there who have the same opinion as me. That's why I run these channels. It's because I want to give a voice to those people who feel like they can't put their voice out there, because guess what? You put a video out there and you suddenly get over 100 comments that are just you are a piece of trash. People don't want to do that. I'm just one of those people who are brave enough to do it anyways. To say, hey, Darth Vader's trash. Hate on me if you really want to. Hate on me. But guess what? That's what I feel like. And there are people in that comment section, there are some comments in that comment section saying, hey, I agree with you on this. Thank you for saying that. Because for those 10 people who needed someone to voice that thing they couldn't voice, I did it. And so, yes, Darth Vader is probably, for most people, considered a good villain. For me, he's considered bad, and I made a voice for those people. So, yeah, overall, comment what you want to comment, but in the same way, just note that I don't really pay attention to negative comments that much unless I really feel like I want to, and I have something important to say back to them. And there have actually been a couple times where I see a comment that's just like, okay, this is just not doing anything good for the world, and delete. You do have people who delete comments because it's just like, you're doing nothing. You know, someone who writes slop. This video is slop. Okay, what good is that going to do? Like, I could leave that or I could delete it. And sometimes I'm like, I'm going to leave it because it's no point. But it's like a lot of times, like, I just like, accept, decline. You know, because you can go through your things and accept which ones as you have posted live and which ones are not. There's been nothing to this video at all. It's having someone just say slop. Okay, slop. Good word. Nice word, slop. Like, what? It's doing nothing. Yes, sometimes my videos are slop. I have to admit that. I'm trying to get better at making good videos. But, yeah, I don't know. This is a strange video to make. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Comment your comments. Do what you want. But thought I should, as I come back to my film channel, put out this video talking about how the last couple of months my opinions have definitely changed on this. Yeah, thank you guys for watching. This has been the Movie Net Review. Peter Wary, signing off.